Oh, cans of tuna. Oh, oh, oh. Okay, we're too far in now. I'm just going to keep recording. there, was, there was one time in the lab where I think he had let's just call it a backfire. Yeah, I'm guessing when you have a diet made of 110% tuna, sometimes you might have some digestive distress. Is like for the Ann Arbor guys, this is the beginning of the lecture. Yeah. And so there was one day in the lab, he had a release. And you thought the sound he made, you would have thought he's like somebody shot him. So I guess it happened. And it's like, ah. It's like, and also it's like, oh dear. I've soiled my, like, just announces it. Excuse me. No, he wasn't. He was just sitting at the machine working by himself. Nobody was interacting with him. Just, like, I soiled myself. Excuse me. I need to go find a new pair of trousers. Just announced it to the room, just guys. I mean, he could have maybe just escaped without saying anything. It was the greatest day of my life. So, well, at least top 3. Oh, man.
You know, your voice for him sounds suspiciously like your voice for your grandmother.
That shouldn't.
What's your grandmother voice?
My grandmother or my grandfather? I don't really do my grandfather. Well, my grandfather kicked the bucket. I still have a living, my very Jewish grandmother still alive. But that's a whole different voice. It's like, I am not accepting this sandwich. And let me tell you why. This sandwich is a disgrace. It's empty.
All right, after being a professor, please go into comedy.
My parents actually thought I was. So this is one of the things. And this isn't to say comedians are stupid, but I was always a jokester growing up, and I think it was part of how I counteracted Asperger's, because usually people who are on the spectrum, they're very strange, very weird, so you either get ostracized or you find a way to correct it. So I decided just to embrace the weirdness, and then I was kind of a showman type person. So I was always telling jokes and things like that, so my parents kind of thought I'd be a comedian. But I was relatively intelligent. So, well, you might as well go and do something, right? Do something academic, maybe. Yeah, it's all, this even goes back to the book I recommended the other day about that Outliers book. We're all made up of our, all of our different experiences lead up to where we are today, right? So right out of undergrad, I had an offer from Lockheed Martin, which is an aeronautics company, and I would have got top secret clearance. And I'm, in my mind, I don't know what I would have been doing, but writing software for missile tracking or something like that, right? Doesn't that sound cool? Right out of school, like, oh, I'm gonna go make the missiles hit the stuff, right? And so this was a long time ago. So the offer right out of school was for $140,000, which is something like, I think, $250,000 today, in today's dollars, right out of undergrad. So how many of you would take that job? Most people would, right? That's I don't care what the job is.
Are you murdering people?
Maybe even. But here's the thing. I was going to take the job.
Okay.
Why do you think I didn't?
Is that when your business started to
No.
take off? No.
My mom. I already had my business. I was doing all right, but yeah, I spoke to my mom. My mom said there was an opportunity at the university to teach, and I would go get a master's degree at the time, and so the teaching gig, interestingly enough, was going to pay about $27,000. A lot less, right? So again, logic says, okay, you go and do something you're not sure you would like, and go to school more and make crap money, or go and do something it doesn't matter if you'd like but sounds awesome, making crazy money, and you can't tell anybody about it, which makes it mysterious, right? My mom tells me I should go try out teaching. I maybe would like it. Why do you think she could tell me to do that? She's not. My mom doesn't even have a job.
Is this the back to the comedians part?
No.
No.
This is related to the. No. My parents are rich. I mean, this is part of kind of what that book talks about. Is, we can say, well, rich people have, these advantages that other people don't. Well, there's some truth to that. $250,000, well, back then, $140,000, might have been a ridiculous amount of money to a family that wasn't necessarily rich or overly wealthy or something like that. So they're like, of course you take that. That's life-changing money. I didn't come from a family like that. My dad was a cosmetic dentist. My mom ran the office with him. That money was not like life-changing money. So my mom could recommend to me, don't do it for the money. And that's why I've talked to so many of you and said, don't do things for the money. So it's, I had that opportunity. Well, I had people in my life who could give me that advice that I couldn't have seen myself, right? Actually, if you had me a top secret clearance, or whatever. But it adds some legitimacy to this idea that, people come from wealthier families. They're going to, as long as they embrace it, they're going to have some advantages that people from poor families may not necessarily have. Every now and then they luck out. So we all have to be thankful for every little thing we do have, and we have to take advantage of all those little opportunities, because sometimes they're few and far between. But it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I've told that story to many people before, but yeah, my mommy made me become a teacher. Interesting, right?
Yeah. You don't hire any tutor in your office.
What?
I said you don't hire any tutor in your office, right?
How do you know?
We can smell it from here.
I don't know, he keeps his office closed most of the time.
No, it's actually always unlocked.
Is it?
Always. If it's ever locked, it's because the manager, maintenance cleaned it up or locked it. But they all know not to lock it now.
So this is a completely different question.
Yeah, we need to get towards class soon, but.
Right.
Halfway over.
Why did the hackathons get canceled?
Oh, so based on the feedback surveys, I kind of said it in the email. So students feel like there's too many required activities outside of class, which is fine. I can understand that. So part of this is me, let's call it pushing my agenda on the students, because I know how valuable some of these external events can be. And unfortunately, the reality is if you don't require students to go to something, most students won't go. It's just the nature of the beast. So, but basically, the temperature of the student body seems to indicate that anything we're going to do related to education should occur in the time period that you signed up for the course, and then related homework to that course. So we canceled I still encourage you. I mean, it seems like a couple of groups are going to try to do hackathons on those days. Totally encourage you to go and do those things. I'll probably end up helping out, but it won't be a department-specific thing. We're not going to require it. You're not going to get any credit for going to it. The credit you're getting is knowledge by going and learning this stuff. So that should be good enough. And so in principle, I agree with that anyways. But I guess if you were asking me to summarize, I would say that the average student doesn't really care about learning. They care about a piece of paper. That's what I would probably summarize. So that's kind of the punchline for it. Hopefully all of you that are in here, that's not your case. So now having said that, the tech talks, if I had to do it over again, probably I would do fewer tech talks. But I can pretty much guarantee you that every single one of those tech talks is going to turn into at least one internship for a student, probably more than one. We already have a couple of students already job shadowing with Tesh Global from the talk from last week.
That's cool.
They're job shadowing now. We've had two students, both in this classroom, who've interned with SkyGen, and I anticipate having 3 or 4 students in the future do things with them. So, again, every year I have students come and say, "Oh, I'm looking for an internship, blah, blah, blah. Can you, help me find one?" Well, I'm throwing you in front of these speakers, and you don't view that as help, so. So it's, and the punchline is I don't get paid when I go to those things, but I show up to every single one of them. I don't need the internship. But, and it is what it is. And it's not an unfair sentiment, right? Unfortunately, today's world, students start real life a lot sooner. When, I went to undergrad, students didn't come to college with credit card debt. They didn't come to college with a car payment. Their full-time job was school. Every now and then, you would work like a lab monitor or something like that, working your 18 hours a week or whatever for your, back then it was probably, $3.75 an hour or something like that. That was your job. But we live in a different world today. Things just start sooner, and it's not individual students' fault. It's just that's the nature of our world, and we've adapted to that type of thing. And I think unfortunately what it does is it makes the universities turn out an average student that isn't as prepared for industry as they should be. But universities are also businesses. So, we recruit students, we come in and we're selling you an education, but that education comes with a diploma attached to it. And that diploma is what you put on your resume to go get your job. After that, we hope you don't embarrass us. By saying, "Oh, my degree's from Concordia, yet I don't know how to tie my shoes." Or that's all I know how to do is tie my shoes. It's just the nature of the beast. It's from an educator's perspective, I would say it's frustrating. But that's okay. I mean, we have to adapt just like everybody else has to adapt. So I can donate my time for the students that are interested in doing some things. And that'll be the way it is. It'll be a smaller group of students, but it'll likely be a stronger group of students. And then you cultivate them and, help them go out and get, the internships, the high paying jobs, the things like that. And, the other students get to sleep in the bed they made type thing. It's just the nature of the beast, I suppose. The good news for us is we do have an active hackathon club that Josh Appel runs here. They're going to a hackathon. You guys leave what? New today?
Yeah.
Okay, so in a half hour, they're jumping on they're carpooling down to Champaign, Illinois, which is where I grew up, actually, near University of Illinois, doing a 24-hour hackathon. And I think Josh posted in Slack that you guys are doing some other ones. So I'd highly encourage you to talk to Josh, get involved in the hackathon things. I just can't even begin to tell you how valuable those are to your careers, your knowledge.
And even if you don't learn anything by going to them, they are great networking opportunities.
I mean, it just is what it is, but at least we have the fallback where we have a club that's doing hackathons. And I presume one way or another, the hackathon club's going to get involved in these couple of side. It looks like Noah Kurtz is going to try to organize some kind of hackathon. I don't know if he's going to do it 12 or 24 or whatever hackathon on the day that the 24-hour one was going to be.
Yeah, you mentioned.
And I think there's a couple of people that are going to try to do something next Saturday, a week from tomorrow, here for the hackathon. I think Michael Brocker posted something about that. And even when there isn't an official hackathon, I mean, I'd encourage students to just get together in the lounge at 7 a.m. on a Saturday and pick a project and work on it for 5 straight hours. Just so much learning takes place in those kind of situations. It's Yeah, good.
This goes back to, sorry, this goes back to internships, because I kind of question, like, have you guys considered making an internship like a required course?
It is in the
I know
new.
it's difficult, but like.
No, it's required.
It's really valuable.
The paperwork actually goes to Faculty Senate today. We have a new we have an updated computer science major where there's a core tech. There's a tech core where everybody who takes any of the programs in computer science take these same the core classes. I think it's 150 is not in there anymore. 175 is the first course, 200. So on and so forth. Then we have 5 specializations. So the specialization in like CS theory, which would be like traditional CS, AI and robotics, cybersecurity, animation, and IT. So 5 different specializations. We technically also have called a pseudo specialization in data science, but it actually isn't offered by us. It's offered through the math department, but they use a bunch of our classes. So if you're very interested in data science, I'd encourage that student to be a data science major through the math department, who we partner with, and they take a bunch of our classes, and even a couple of the data science classes we'll teach. It doesn't make sense for 2 departments in the School of Arts and Sciences to both have a data science major. Let's have one and make it good, and it just happens to be that math had already created one, and it's a good one. So we're gonna. I don't know if we might put it in our kind of our literature as like a listed under our specializations, but maybe say something like delivered through the math department or something, just so kind of cross advertise it or something like that. But I do have some information on that if anybody is interested. I realize this is a senior level class, so most of you are too far down the pipeline but you might be interested in going over there. I mean, some of you have at least a year left. You might want to take a data science class or something that they're offering. It's kind of a big deal, that kind of stuff today. But in general, I'd also encourage you, and this is related to this conversation, I think. Well, let me finish the thing. Every one of those specializations requires 3 credits of internship. So it doesn't matter what. So anybody who's getting a degree in computer science is going to have to do 3 credits of internship. Now, realistically, I'm sure it's going to sometimes happen where students like, oh, well, I couldn't take an internship, blah, 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 whatever it is, and we end up swapping some upper division elective for the internship. But hopefully that's more the exception than the rule. But students are cordially required to take internships, that type of thing. Now, having said all of that stuff, something else I guess I'd throw out here. I'll just blow through class time, but this is important stuff, let's say. I know I've spoken to several of you before about doing a master's program. I mean, I'd encourage you to take our master's program, but do a master's program somewhere. Unfortunately, the bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma. It's for these same reasons that I've said. Students don't want to do this extra work outside. If we graduate 10 students, I think that 6 of them are weaker than they should be. Let's say something like that. I don't have any statistics to back that up. That's just my gut feeling. I think there's probably quite a bit of truth to it. I actually suspect it might be more than 6, but that aren't as prepared as they should be. But the punchline is that everybody thinks they need to go to college today, and evidence suggests that there's some truth to that, because what we have is a lack of electricians and plumbers and other specialized folks that, hey, you can make a lot of money as an electrician. It's a dangerous job, and you don't need a college degree to be an electrician, but that doesn't mean it's a phone-it-in job. You go and you're like somebody's apprentice for like a long time. It's not easy. You're not taking the easy route going and being an electrician. You're just taking an extremely focused trade type of route, and you get good at what you're good at, and you're good at not dying where somebody else might die when they start touching that kind of stuff. But we kind of choked out those industries because everybody thinks they have to go to college. Having said that, the college degree kind of becomes the new high school diploma, where nobody really cares if you have it. It's unfortunate. So I encourage students to do master's degrees. That sets them apart. You can do a master's degree in 3 semesters almost anywhere. And a lot of schools offer master's degrees in the evening. So like our master's program in CS is full-time is you take 2 classes at once, and they meet 1 time a week for 4 hours. And you're done in 3 semesters. So 6 classes and you're done. They're not necessarily easy. There's quite a bit of work outside of them and things like that, but I don't know that I would say that they're on average drastically more difficult than like the harder undergrad classes. But in 3 semesters, you can go get a master's degree, and now you've demanded a higher salary over time, better movement opportunity through like upper management and things like that. And then, some differentiating factor between you and the zillions of people who are applying for a job with a bachelor's degree. At the very least, it probably increases your chance of an interview by a lot. After that, just don't suck. Because at that point, once you're in front of the place, now you got to sell yourself. It doesn't matter what your transcript says and things like that. Just get the interview and move on. Yeah.
Would you say that it's better to just get a master's degree, like right after
Yes.
bachelor's, or wait to get one that you like, or is specialized to your field, or get a second one at that point? I don't know.
Okay. The correct answer to your question is yes, do it right after your master's, right after your bachelor's degree. And the reason for this is, in the ideal world, waiting until you find the perfect one makes some sense, but that implies that you are going to go and work for some time while you kind of wait around and wait for the right opportunity to present itself. Typically, when stay poor for as long as you can. Typically, when students say, I'm going to go work for a couple of years and then go back to grad school, which you hear people say all the time, right? You've heard people say that? In 20 years of teaching, I can't actually name one person who did that. I could probably list a couple people who several years later started thinking about grad school again, but never could quite pull the trigger. Because real life starts. You got a house payment. You might have kids. You got family obligations. Typically, you start making more money. You start spending more money. All these things start adding up, and it makes going to school more difficult. Easiest time to go to school is when you're dirt poor. Just take out loans. Nobody likes having debt, but you're going to make so much money as a technology person, you'll pay back your debt. Plus, the interest rates on debts and loans is so low that it's not even worthwhile paying it back faster than it is. Invest the money you would have otherwise paid it back. You can meet with me sometimes. I can give you my whole investment strategy on that stuff that's unrelated to this, but money is easy.
You get money to invest.
Well, that simplifies it, but I'm just saying is to make decisions based on dollars is just the wrong way to go about things. The dollars will take care of themselves. I realize it's a requirement of like living. Okay? So I'm not saying pretend like it's monopoly money and every dollar that comes in, just burn it because it's fun. Right? It's like, look, I didn't earn this, so don't do that. I'm just saying do the right things and the money will take care of itself after the fact. And unfortunately, well, I guess for my profession, fortunately, I would say, the right thing to do in today's world is to go and get a master's degree. That will set you apart and give you an opportunity for a better trajectory moving forward. It solves 2 problems for many students. One is it sets you apart, just from a degree perspective. Another thing it has helped students with is students who have had shaky GPAs in undergrad. Employers don't care what your GPA looks like from an undergrad if you have a master's degree with a good GPA. You can erase past transgressions, let's say, something like that. Yeah.
Do the master's degrees here have focus? Or
General? As of right now, no, but we're currently revamping those. But my gut feeling is they probably won't have the options that the undergrad does, but they'll cover those topics. So we're going to have a data science class in the grad program. So like this semester, we're already making those changes, even though the courses aren't officially that yet. So like usually we have 6 credit hour courses. And this semester, I'm teaching the computer architecture course. So on paper, it's computer architecture. But I'm teaching it as the first 8 weeks is computer architecture, and then the second 8 weeks is a data science course. So I'm teaching it as if it's going to be what it's in the future, where instead of having 6 credit hour courses, we'll have 12 credit hour courses. And have them separated where each class will at least last for 8 weeks.
Gotcha.
So it's all on paper. It won't change the way you go to school. You'll still go to 2 classes per week if you want to go full time. Meets one night a week from 6 to 10 p.m. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, the next class starts. You come the same night a week, more than likely, 6 to 10 p.m. So you can go work full time and do a master's degree, and you'll, be a little more stressed than you might otherwise be. But it doesn't prevent you from working, because the degree program is designed around that. But it also
So how many strikes are you having for the new program? 7?
for undergrad, I listed them.
Is it 7 still?
No,
Just kidding.
it's 5. Theory, AI robotics, cybersecurity, animation, and IT.
There's no data
Technically, 6
science
if you
anymore?
count data science.
And data science is a pseudo specialization because it's offered through math. All right, any other questions? Everybody has their future planned out?
At least the next 3 days now.
All right. How did the homework go?
It's going.
Better the second time around?
Yeah.
Makes sense? All right, so we don't have tons of time, but let's see if we can go through it quickly. So last time I wrote successor in terms of base 10, right? But right now it won't necessarily work for higher bases because I'm not actually doing the mapping. Yep. But I did write the mapping, correct? So we have a function in here called, so if I do the division and get the remainder, I want to turn that into the mapping of it. So if I have a 15, I want to get the value that lives, I want the char at 15 in our, whatever we called our alpha, we call it alpha? Vocab. All right, so we want to get the char at that for our successor. So successor, this is where we do our modulo. So let's see. What we need to do is, so we're doing a modulo, we're taking 1 plus our car of that guy, which could give us a 9, a 10, an 11, a 4, whatever it is. So what are we doing if it is a, actually technically this guy will give us accurate digit numbers as it is right now. It just won't do the correct mapping. So what we actually can do at the end is we can actually just map the char at across the answer. What I mean by that is right now if I change n to 16 like this and I do my 2989, I get BAD. Make sense? So now I can just map a function across that takes those numbers and turns it into. I thought I did this right, now I'm ticked off again. All right, so we would maybe call this guy a successor helper.
Can't actually do. Because like
So successor helper, successor helper.
yesterday when
All right, so this guy now works that way. So what we would do is we would define
get us out about to like
successor. Focus! I'm about to show you something awesome. All right, so we're going to define successor. Successor is going to be a lambda that's going to take in a, let's see, we're calling it now, count is a loop, to answer your question. I'm calling successor 2989 times.
Well,
That's what count does. Because to get 2989 in decimal, I have to loop 2989 times and call successor that many times
But then,
to build up to BAD.
scheme.
Make sense?
Yeah.
no, but then I have a question then. So then how is count different from the successor? Because when I put it in, it's to get me the right answer yesterday.
Well, no, because count uses successor. So, I mean, it's definitely different because it leverages successor. All count does is takes a number on a voyage between itself and 0. So I count down from 2989, call successor. 2988, call successor. 2987, call successor. Over and over and over again. And then what am I ultimately doing? I'm calling successor a whole bunch of times, passing that updated digit into it. So ultimately, I'm taking the successor of 0, which is 1, the successor of 1, which is 2, the successor of 2, which is 3, the successor of 4, which is 5, the successor of blah, 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 which is 1 more than that. Doing that 2989 times, which gives me, when n is 16, it gives me a 13, a 10, and an 11, which is B, A, D. 13 is charat,
Oh, okay.
right? So,
It's gonna have to be char at -1, isn't it? Because we have a 0 in there, so if you do 16, you'll get a G.
A is at bucket 10, right?
Oh, no, because, never mind, I'm
Yeah.
gonna by ones instead of 0. Go on.
I see my error.
All right, so we're gonna define num to char to be a lambda that takes a num as a parameter. And what does this guy do? He's going to call charat on vocab and num. I need this so I can map it across,
Oh, okay.
right? Because I need something that takes a single parameter. So num2char is a function that takes one parameter and maps. I could also just map this lambda across if I want to. If that makes you feel more awesomest. So I can map this across this. Oh, I started writing something else up here. Everybody relax. I do need to finish writing successor because this guy calls count call successor. Although actually, to do it this way, I don't need to.
Yeah.
I can just switch it back to successor up here. The helper was going to be the wrap, but since we're short on time, we'll just do it this way and see the answer. So there's my BAD. All right. So that makes sense for everybody? That's me. So really, if we wanted to make this kind of more official, we would probably put this map thing inside of successor and have it call something some number of times.
So how's that map work again?
Map applies this function to every element of the result of this. So this guy gave me a 13, a 10, and an 11. So when I apply this lambda to a 13, 13 comes in for num. I take the charat vocab 13, and I get a D. If I apply this function to a 11, the 11th element of vocab is a B. The 10th element of vocab is an A. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. So then is that function's gonna wait for count to be done for that to happen?
Yeah, this guy boils down to a value.
Oh, okay. So
The value that boils down to is that 13, 10, 11, and then I'm mapping this guy across it. And if you don't like this guy, what did I call it? I called it, oh here, we'll just do it a second.
Fat.
Num to char.
Num to char?
Num to char.
Are you lying?
Char to num? No, num to char. Num to char.
So a synonym for that is that.
Yeah. And
These are the same thing. Num to char is a variable that has a value. The value it holds is a lambda. Specifically, it's that exact lambda. These two lines are not different than each other.
then aren't you telling me to pass the number in?
Here's the number right here.
oh, wait a second.
But isn't that gonna boil down to the
So
list?
it should be using successor though, correct? So we should actually be getting one less than that. It should be cat.
What do you mean it should be getting one less than? I'm calling successor 2989 times, starting with a 0.
Yes, but
So my
Oh,
very last
okay.
time through will be the tick up to BAD.
okay. Gotcha. Just like with the- okay. I was thinking about calling successor on the count of 20. Okay, my bad.
All right, so this makes sense?
Yeah.
And predecessor is basically the identical thing, except you write successor instead of adding one, you subtract one, and then you sometimes drop things off your list and then have to call predecessor on the rest of it to start ticking down something else. Same logic, right? Just going the other direction. And then instead of mapping char at, we'll map index of onto it. Does that make sense? All right, so did anybody happen to solve it that way with like this map thing? Do we like this map thing?
I like it.
Yeah, map's pretty powerful. But what we'll do is if somebody wants to finish applying the map thing to their version, then maybe if it works, post it up on Slack so the Ann Arbor people can see it, since we don't have time and I don't want to spend another class period on this. Would you mind doing that? Somebody have this close enough where they can just do the map? Otherwise, I'll just write it later on today and post it. I just don't want to spend another class time on it. That's what I'm getting at. I want you to have the solution so you can study it, but at some point I'll do it. But if somebody else beats me to it, even if you don't have the mapped version of it, if you just have your working version from today, put it up there, and then if somebody works on the map one, you can. Otherwise, I'll write predecessor and map, I don't know, sometime this weekend and put it up. Okay, so at the very least, let me open up the book here real quick. I'm going to have you read ahead because I don't really have time to start something new. We're going to be moving into environment. Okay, so in chapter 2, for right now, let's read up to everything in 2.2. So up to, but not including 2.3. And try to study what's going on in there. It's introducing the idea of an environment and how we can represent an environment. So one of the things we should be learning over the last several weeks that hopefully you're starting to turn the corner on is this idea of we are representing things using data types. So digits are a representation of numbers given a base, right? BAD is a way to represent the decimal number 2989 in base 16. Our leaf is a way of representing a leaf node of a bin tree. An interior node is a way of representing a interior node of a bin tree. Make sense? Everything we've been doing lately has to do with constructors. But once we can represent something abstractly, then we can pass it around and use it in convenient ways. So try to read up through 2.3, but not including 2.3, with that in mind. And then we'll start working through the environment thing on Monday. Sound good? Questions, comments, concerns, bribes? All right, I'll see everybody on Monday.
Mr. Gonzalez, big black hands.